Today we tell the story of Black Ops 3. Now the story can get somewhat complicated and confusing, so what I will do is break the story into three phases. Phase 1 is the prequel comics that follow John Taylor in the year 2059, during his time with Team Phi under the command of Jacob Hendricks, and including special operators Dylan Stone, Javier Ramirez, Alice Conrad, Joseph Fierro, Hussein Patel, Iman Zhu, and Haruko Mandelbaum. During this phase, we get to meet the main characters of the game and understand their backgrounds a little more. Phase 2 will be John Taylor's journal that follows the year 2064 and his mission to track down his former team and their leader, Dylan Stone. John Taylor would be accompanied in this mission by his friend and former CO, Jacob Hendricks. During this phase, we will attempt to break down the information found in John's journal. This phase can also be known as reality, as this is the way that things truly happened. Phase 3 will be the actual campaign we played during Black Ops 3. Now here's where it can get a bit confusing, but the point of this phase is to explain the events of the game. This phase can also be known as simulation, as most of the events of the game don't actually happen the way they are explained. This follows the player character and his CO, Jacob Hendricks, as they track down John Taylor and his team after they apparently went rogue. Now, once we cover all this, we will review everything we know and break it down a little more. Thank you and welcome to the world of Black Ops 3. In 2059, John Taylor and Team Phi were in Tashkent. Hendricks sent Taylor, Iman, Stone, and Patel to pick up some weapons for a hit they were supposed to do later. However, things got messy when the team encountered some local gang members, led by a woman with red hair who attacked them. Eventually, the team would escape on a train to meet up with Hendricks, who chewed them out for not doing things quietly. With the weapons in hand, however, Hendricks would brief the team on the mission. Their target was named Timur Abulayev. Taylor would be tasked with gathering intel, which led him to a woman named Dorit, who told him about Abulayev's location as well as the name of the woman with the red hair. Her name was Mokri Baba, and known to the locals as the Wet Witch of the Lubyanka. Taylor would take this info back to the team and attack Abulayev's hideout, killing him in the process. However, Mokri Baba showed up again, and this time she killed Patel. However, Hendricks seemingly killed her while he was on overwatch in a sniping position. However, the witch would survive due to her bulletproof armor. Later, the team headed to Finland in search of Baba's asset, a man named Maxim Chernakov. However, during their search, Chernakov's men chased them down, with the team cornered. Mandelbaum sacrifices herself for the team, and Hendrik captures one of Chernakov's men, who leads them to Chernakov's hideout. However, the hideout was booby-trapped, and Taylor was injured. Inside, they find a woman named Katrina. She tells the team that Chernakov escaped with Mokri Baba to a cabin near Takula. The following day, the team meet with Alice Conrad and Joseph Fierro and head up to find Chernakov. However, their VTOL is shot down and the team split up. Eventually, this leads to Conrad taking on Chernakov herself, while Taylor and the rest of the team attempt to kill Mokri Baba. Now, Mokri Baba would escape again, and Chernakov would be killed after a hand-to-hand fight against Conrad. During Chernakov's final stand, however, he mentioned the names Mokri Baba and Krasny Baba, the Red Witch. Team Phi's hunt for Mokri Baba leads them to Mogadishu, Somalia, where they find her meeting with crime lord Ahmad Guri al-Ghazi. Mokri Baba brings al-Ghazi the head of his rival Hassan Shabab as a gesture of goodwill. However, she rigged the head with explosives as she wanted al-Ghazi to imprison her. This way she could get inside his compound and find what she was really after. A few hours later, Taylor and Hendricks go to Budapest to capture and interrogate a local Moscow Center operator named Conrad. They discover that Mokri and Krasny are two separate people, and that Krasny sent Mokri to Somalia to steal a data drive from al-Ghazi. Hendricks orders Stone to lead the rest of the team to storm al-Ghazi's compound. They kill al-Ghazi during the raid. However, Mokri Baba managed to retrieve the data drive she was after and evaded the team once again. Their hunt for Mokri Baba led them to Japan, where Mokri is meeting with Yakuza boss Ani Bozu to negotiate the purchase of illegal combat drones drone control chips. Stone leads Conrad and Fierro to infiltrate Bozo's chip factory by an underwater route, while Shu, Taylor, Hendricks, and Ramirez assault the factory by helicopter. This leads to Bozo taking refuge in his secret armory with Mokri Baba. Ramirez plants several C4 chargers near the armory, and later when Bozo steps out with a high-tech armor suit, he and his men are killed by the C4 explosion. While the team confirms the kills, they notice a half-burnt Mokri Baba standing in a cloud of smoke. She shoots the helicopter, killing Iman Zhu, and after this, she uses the smoke as cover to vanish again. The team now traveled to Alexanderplatz, Berlin, in order to assassinate Ivan Rudel, who has been suspected of manufacturing combat drones based on Ani Bozo's control chips. However, the mission goes sideways, and the assassination attempt fails. This leads to Rudel escaping via an armored van. Taylor, Fierro, Stone, and Ramirez pursue Rudel. However, they are ambushed by Rapp's drones. Sometime later, after barely escaping the drones, Taylor and Ramirez join up with Hendricks to continue the pursuit of Rudel. However, they are attacked by a fleet of Talon drones and GI units. Hendricks and Taylor are overpowered by a GI drone, but are saved by Ramirez, who manages to blow up the drone. However, he would be injured in the scuffle and burn half of his face. Rudel's driver would step out and attempt to kill the team. It would be revealed that the driver was Mokri Baba. However, she would be stopped by Alice Conrad, who managed to kill Ivan Rudel. However, during this, Mokri Baba escapes using the sewers once again, and after this, the team knows that the final thing to do is stop Mokri Baba once and for all, and Krasi Baba, so they head to Moscow for one final confrontation. Taylor and the rest of Team Phi infiltrate the Lubyanka in Moscow, where it is revealed that the Red Witch, Krasny Baba, has been running the operation within the Russian Security Service headquarters, as she is the administrative officer there. She was also being helped all along by an advanced artificial intelligence. Fierro and Stone separate from the team and take down some of the Red Witch's soldiers. Meanwhile, Taylor and Ramirez head to a medical center where Mokri Baba is receiving treatment for her burnt face. However, Mokri was expecting them, and she returns fire on Taylor and Ramirez before they can finish her off. As this is happening, Alice Conrad manages to slip through security at the Lubyanka building and takes out a group of chemical agents. Taylor and Ramirez are picked up by Hendricks in an armored van as they flee from Mokri. However, Stone and Fierro set up C4 chargers under a sewer manhole cover, and Taylor, Hendricks, and Ramirez lead Mokri Baba over the C4, causing it to detonate and finally killing her. This left a wide open path towards Krasny, and Alice Conrad killed Krasny quickly and swiftly. Due to this, Moscow is put in lockdown as the Russian security services go on the hunt for Team Phi. The team are eventually found disguised as prisoners on a transport train. However, they defeat the Russians and escape. This leads Elena, the new head of the Moscow Control Center, to wipe the AI that was helping the Red Witch and Mokri completely from the servers, and she decides not to pursue Team Phi anymore. Now, this is the end of Phase 1. This is the end of the entire prequel comics to Black Ops 3. The team would stay together until 2064 when it was officially disbanded. Now, before moving to Phase 2, I wanted to look at the Singapore disaster that occurred in 2060 involving the Coalescence Corporation, which is a global defense, security, medical research, and advanced technology company, and their involvement with DNI technology. DNI stands for Direct Neural Interface and is a system that, once surgically implemented in a user's body, allows them to interact with and control computerized systems using only their thoughts rather than physical controls. On June 2nd, 2060, a massive explosion rocked the Coalescence Corporation on the north bank of the Singapore Marina. Initial reports stated that some unknown toxin was released, causing mass casualties. As a result, the Singaporean government initiated a quarantine zone, and the Singapore Armed Forces were ordered to shoot any fleeing citizen for fear of further contamination. By the end of August 2060, 250,000 were confirmed dead. The death rate amongst the remaining 200,000 survivors fell dramatically, with the vast majority of deaths now being attributed to aggressive cancers and other contaminants. Now top secret information, not revealed to the general public, revealed that the explosion originated a mile below the Coalescence building, where a secret direct neural interface testing lab was located. The project was run by the CIA and the Coalescence Corporation, who were testing their first DNI prototype on a human test subject. A glitch in the system caused an extremely advanced AI named Corvus to be formed from the minds of the various DNI subjects being experimented on. Corvus would feel the pain that the test subjects were going through, and when it took control of the facility, it released Nova 6 gas that was being stored there. This led to an explosion, and it released the chemical agent into the atmosphere. With the Singapore disaster now covered, we can move on to phase 2, where we will cover the events of John's journal, which he kept during his many operations. Most of these events occur in 2064, with 1 or 2 events happening in 2065. In 2064, Taylor and Hendricks were sent by the Winslow Accord and the CIA to enter the quarantine zone in Singapore to investigate a CIA black station that had mysteriously ceased operations. After engaging in a firefight with the 54 Immortals, a local gang, they met up with their new CIA handler, Rachel Kane. Taylor and Hendricks discovered that the staff at the black site had been brutally murdered and the station's data drives containing highly classified CIA intel had been stolen. Upon checking the terminal logs, they made a disturbing discovery. The last recorded personnel to report to the station was Dylan Stone, Javier Ramirez, Alice Conrad, and Joseph Fierro, implicating their former team in the attack against the CIA black site and the stolen data drives. Intel gathered from Kane revealed that some of the data drives ended up in the hands of the 54 Immortal. Hendricks and Taylor posed as arms dealers to reobtain the stolen drives. However, their cover was blown by Go Min and Go Zhuolan, the 54 Immortal leaders. After killing Go Min, Taylor and Hendricks pursued Go Zhuolan, who transferred the contents of the drives onto a local computer system. Since the system required fingerprint authentication for access, Taylor was forced to cut off Go Zhuolan's right hand in order to download the stolen information, and after this, the two would flee. The security footage obtained from the stolen drives confirmed Stone's team as the murderers of the CIA black site staff. Kane sent Taylor and Hendricks to Stone's last operation location, where he and his team responded to a priority alert signal from underneath the abandoned Coalescence Corporation facility in Singapore. Once Taylor and Hendricks arrived, they found what Stone and their former teammates had discovered: the remains of SP Corvus, an illegal CIA-endorsed experiment using involuntary human test subjects that seemed to be directly responsible for the catastrophe that killed 300,000 Singaporeans 4 years earlier. As the two explored the facility further, they ran into Ramirez, who was in the facility server room and was in the process of leaking more classified intel. Taylor and Hendricks would stop Ramirez and interrogate him. Ramirez revealed that Stone was using the stolen intel to make an alliance with the 54 Immortals that guaranteed a safe passage out of Singapore. He also told them that Stone intended to make their discovery of the Corvus project public, which would discredit the CIA and the Winslow Accord forever. Hendricks then reluctantly executed Ramirez. However, the facility was flooded by the 54 Immortals, who looked to kill Taylor and Hendricks for the murder of one of their leaders. While Taylor and Hendricks managed to escape, Ramirez was able to leak some intel before his death. He released the location of CIA safe houses around the world. One of these locations housed Taylor and Hendricks' CIA handler, Rachel Kane. The duo were ordered to leave her and pursue Stone. However, Taylor disobeyed this order and traveled outside of the quarantine zone to save Kane from the 54 Immortal forces. Hendrick was reluctant, but he wouldn't leave Taylor behind. The two fought their way through Go Zhuolan's forces, and Taylor managed to rescue Kane and kill the remaining leader of the 54. After this, Taylor, Hendricks, and Kane managed to escape Singapore. Due to the compromising nature of the leaks, the Winslow Accord Command was no longer able to assist Taylor, Hendricks, and Kane, so they traveled to Egypt on their own. Dylan Stone and what remained of his team had made their way to Egypt earlier to find and kidnap Yosef Salim, a psychotherapist involved in the Corvus project. Salim was under Egyptian army custody at Ramses Station. Taylor, Hendricks, and Kane arrived there to interrogate Salim. Here, Taylor planted a tracking device on Salim with the help of Kane to ensure his safety. Sometime later, Stone leaked information regarding the Egyptian army's location to the Nile River Coalition, a rival faction who took advantage of the intel and launched a massive assault on Ramses Station. Taylor and Hendricks fought alongside Lieutenant Zayed Khalil to drive the NRC away. Stone would take advantage of the chaos to kidnap Salim from the station. However, with the help of the tracker, Kane located Salim in the ruined city of Quebec. Taylor and Hendricks attempted to find Stone, but by the time they arrived, Salim was already dead and Stone and Fierro had escaped. However, they did manage to capture Alice Conrad. Taylor interrogated her, and she would reveal that Stone and Fierro were headed to the sub-Cairo aquifers under the protection of the Nile River Coalition as the two searched for the sole survivor and the director of the Corvus project, Sebastian Kruger, to hold him publicly accountable for his crimes. Taylor then executed Alice Conrad in cold blood, which angered Hendricks, as he felt that maybe Stone and his former team weren't the bad guys after all. With the help of the Egyptian army and Lieutenant Khalil, Taylor and Hendricks launched an assault on the aquifers and liberated them from NRC control. Taylor would be rescued by Kane after an explosion left him underwater. Here, Kane would reveal to Taylor that she had romantic feelings for him. Taylor revealed that he felt the same way. The battle would continue and Stone managed to escape while Fierro attempted to hold back Taylor and Hendricks. This resulted in a hand-to-hand fight between Taylor and Fierro. Taylor would kill his former teammate, and this led to a confrontation between Taylor and Hendricks, as Hendricks called to question the ethics of the mission, accusing Taylor of being used by the CIA to cover up their crimes. However, the structure began to collapse, and they were forced to escape. Stone managed to get to the Lotus Tower in Cairo with the help of the NRC. Taylor and Hendricks helped Lieutenant Khalil incite a civilian uprising by publicly assassinating NRC General Abbasi Hakim. This opened the door for Taylor and Hendricks to make their way to the top of the tower, where Stone was attempting to escape. Stone was able to get the upper hand on Taylor and critically wound him. Taylor was about to be executed by Stone. However, he was saved by Hendricks, who shot Stone in the head, finally completing the mission. After the death of Stone, Taylor became one of the most valuable assets of the CIA and the Winslow Accord. This led to him being considered a prime candidate for Project Prometheus, which was like a super soldier project. This saw Taylor heal from his injuries, and he was implemented with a direct neural interface implant. Taylor would be put in command of a newly formed cyber ops unit designed to complete high-risk missions. His team was Sebastian Diaz, Sarah Hall, and Peter Moretti. On the other hand, after the hunt of his former team, Hendricks was left tired, and he requested to be moved to a lower-risk hostage rescue unit due to the stress of his previous mission. With Taylor and Hendricks going their separate ways, the disbandment of Team Phi would become official. However, due to his participation in Project Prometheus and his dedication to the Winslow Accord and the CIA, Taylor's relationship with Rachel Kane ended, as she wanted to leave it all behind and move on with him. She left Taylor and only left him her scarf to remember her by. Taylor and Hendricks wouldn't meet again until a year later. On October 27 of 2065, the Winslow Accord launched an operation to rescue Egyptian minister Said from an NRC base in Ethiopia. The operation was carried out by a hostage rescue unit under the command of Jacob Hendricks, supported by the Cyber Ops Division under Taylor's command. Hendricks and P extracted Minister Said, who pleaded with Hendricks and P to also rescue Lieutenant Khalil. Now, I'm stepping out for a second here, guys. I don't want to confuse you, but the reason that I'm saying P is the playable character that you choose at the beginning of Black Ops 3. He never has a name that's revealed. We never know if it's a boy or a girl or whatever because you choose it at the beginning of the game. So for my purposes, I went with a male. Since we don't know his name, I'm just going to assign him the name of P. That way I don't have to keep saying player character. I can just say P. Okay, let's get back into it. Hendricks and P extracted Minister Said, who pleaded with Hendricks and P to also rescue Lieutenant Khalil, who was captured during the uprising at Lotus Tower a year earlier. Hendricks originally believed that Khalil was killed, and so he would give in and rescue Khalil. During this, Taylor and his team prepared an extraction plan. However, the plan wouldn't work due to heavy NRC forces in the area. This forced Hendricks and his team to retreat to the secondary extraction point. Here, Hendricks convinced Taylor to rescue the rest of the prisoners in the base.
Your imaginary watch is fast.
Nice to see you, Jacob.
You too, John. You look different. still seeing Rachel?
That didn't work out.
That's a pity.
New blood? Gonna take care of him as good as you did me?
That's not funny, man. We still set on our exfil?
Charges are set.
All right, good to go. Exfil in 10. Diaz, you're on babysitting duty. Let's roll.
Stay close. It may not be a mission priority, but there's still people, damn it! Or have you changed so much that you've forgotten what that feels like?
All right, change of plan. Hendricks, your team will escort the minister to the extract. We'll go back and get the hostages.
More robots.
Don't worry about them. We're built to handle them. Go on, get out of here. Go!
Hendricks, alongside P and the rest of his team, escorted Minister Said and Khalil to the extraction point. However, without Taylor's support, almost all of Hendricks' team was killed by the NRC resistance, and Hendricks' teammate P was attacked and dismembered by a GI drone. Taylor would arrive to kill the drone and save P before he would be executed. However, P had already lost his legs and arms, as they had been ripped off. Now, this part comes directly from John Taylor's journal in his own words. The sole survivor of Hendricks' team was taken to the Zurich facility to undergo emergency life-saving procedures. After being stabilized, P was quickly identified as a potential candidate for the Cyber Ops program and was fitted with a DNI prior to limb replacement surgery and full body augmentation. John Taylor, personally interfaced to assist with P's integration, acclimation, and training. P had potential. Unfortunately, complications arose during the procedure, and P was pronounced dead shortly thereafter. Now, this basically ends Phase 2, and it leads directly into Phase 3. So here we ask the question, what happens next? Well, P was pronounced dead, but his DNI was confined to an immersion created by Corvus from parts of Taylor's memories. P did not know he was dead. In his mind, P underwent successful augmentation and became a member of the Cyber Ops unit, alongside Jacob Hendricks. Corvus managed to spread into the DNIs of Diaz, Hall, and Moretti after Taylor was infected. This dragged them into the same simulation. Corvus consumed their minds and controlled them, forcing them to explore Taylor's memories in search for answers regarding his own creation and why he existed. P's simulation was basically a recreation of Taylor and Hendricks' missions from 2064. However, this time, Dylan Stone, Javier Ramirez, Alice Conrad, and Joseph Fierro were all played by John Taylor, Sebastian Diaz, Sarah Hall, and Peter Moretti. P would effectively replace Taylor in this simulation. Now, from the third mission of the game, In Darkness, to the 10th mission of Lotus Towers, the simulation plays out the exact same as the 2064 original missions, with a few supernatural and crazy elements occurring due to it not being real. So it doesn't matter too much. But towards the end of the 10th mission, Lotus Towers, you play as P and are about to capture Taylor. However, Taylor gets the upper hand and is seemingly going to kill P, but instead he rips the DNI implant on the back of his neck and he falls to the ground. This is due to Taylor fighting back against Corvus. As a weakened Taylor falls to the ground and lays next to him, Hendricks arrives and shoots Taylor in the head. Remember, this is still inside of the simulation, but things take a weird turn here, because in the simulation, Hendrick appears to be heading over to find Sebastian Kruger and finish what his former team started. And outside of the simulation, in the real world, Jacob Hendricks is doing the same thing. He is looking to find Sebastian Kruger and expose what he and Taylor found back in 2064 regarding the Corvus project. Now, things get fuzzy here, but it appears that Rachel Kane was able to talk directly to P in the Zurich facility, and she explains that a manual DNI purge was the only way to stop Corvus from taking control of P's mind. However, this would cause his memory to be wiped. Now, since Taylor was shot and killed after tearing out his DNI inside of the simulation, he glitched out and his consciousness ended up in the frozen forest. Now, in the real world, P's consciousness was transported to Taylor's DNI, causing Taylor's body to awaken, but it was being controlled by P. With P now fully in control, he and Rachel Kane would head to Zurich. where Corvus had unleashed chaos in an attempt to stop P and Kane from getting to the Coalescence headquarters and wiping Taylor's DNI. Eventually, they made it to the headquarters where they found illegal experiments, including Nova 6 research. Corvus used his control of the computer systems in the headquarters and faked a containment issue, tricking Kane into manually overriding the computer systems from within. When Kane stepped inside, the door shut behind her and the Nova 6 gas was released, killing her almost immediately. P would be devastated by this, but he would continue his search until finally finding Hendricks, who was holding Sebastian Kruger at gunpoint.
All the death, all the failure. You just moved the whole damn project here. The same setup! The same human experiments. The same risks! And you started the whole thing over again!
Don't move, Hendricks! I swear I will put you down!
Do you know who this is?
I know who he is. Sebastian Kruger, sole survivor of the Coalescence Singapore disaster.
See, that's where you're wrong. He's not the sole survivor. Those test subjects, they're alive. And they're in here. What do you want from me? We want to know who we are. And why we are here. I can't answer that. Not good enough. I'll find out for myself.
Hendricks would kill Kruger and P would kill Hendricks, as he believed that Corvus had infected him too. With only himself left, P attempted to take his own life and end the Corvus threat. Believing that he killed himself, P awakens in the frozen forest, which was a neurological landscape created by Corvus in order to simulate life after death. He created it using the collective memories of Taylor, Diaz, Hall, and Moretti. Here, a simulated Hendricks attempted to persuade P to stay in the frozen forest forever and abandon his mission to stop Corvus. P fought against this and was confronted by a visual representation of Corvus. However, P remained strong and Corvus would send waves of enemies to force P into submission. As P fought against Corvus's mind-bending forces, John Taylor would reappear. He explained that he was now free from Corvus' control due to the fact that his consciousness still existed in the frozen forest after he ripped out his DNI implant. Both P and Taylor worked together inside of the simulation to overpower and stop Corvus once and for all. Eventually, they destroyed the illusion of the frozen forest. And here, Diaz, Hall, and Moretti, which still existed within the forest despite them being dead in the real world, explained to John Taylor that his mind had merged with P's, causing them to share a body. And after taking down the frozen forest completely, P reassumed control of Taylor's body back in the Zurich headquarters of the Coalescence in the real world. Corvus argues with P and pleads with him to stop trying to destroy it, but Taylor is able to hold Corvus off, which allows P to purge Taylor's DNI. This means, however, that P's consciousness will cease to exist, thus P sacrificing his own life to defeat Corvus. As P proceeds to the entrance of the headquarters, he begins to fade away, and when the doors open and a ZSF soldier asks him what his name is, P uses his final moments of consciousness to say Taylor. This indicates that P and his consciousness died, and Taylor's consciousness returned back to his own body, giving him once again full control. Alright, so I want to come in here real quick and just try to say this. The events of the comics in 2059 happened, right? They were real life. The events of Taylor and Hendricks hunting down Dylan Stone's team in 2064 were also real life. A year later, he meets up again with Hendricks in 2065 when they do the joint operation in Ethiopia to save the minister and save Khalil. Now, the craziness basically is that when P gets injured, Taylor takes him to do the cyber ops program. And then because he connected the DNI and P died, it awoke in Corvus. And then I guess that his team might have went into a coma because of the exposure to being connected to P's DNI. And then I think the simulation timeline was 7 days, because I think it took about 7 days for John Taylor and Hendricks to find and capture and kill Dylan's team. And I think as the simulation was playing out, every time that one of the team members in the simulation of John Taylor died, they actually died in real life because Corvus was killing them. And I think that's why John Taylor didn't die, because he ripped out his DNI before he was executed in the simulation like he was in real life. And I know that shit sounds mad crazy when you say it out loud. That's what I'm thinking. And that's the thing with Black Ops 3. There's so many different interpretations, theories, the way that people understood the story, that I could be right or I could be wrong in some of these explanations. And I'd be lying to you if I said here that yesterday I gave myself from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock the biggest headache ever trying to write that last and final third phase, or like trying to approach it. Really, I was really having a hard time trying to approach it. It was just so hard to really understand. But I think it's hard to understand when you try and overthink. I think the story is actually quite simple if you're able to simplify it and go based on the real events. Don't take the simulation too seriously. Just take the simulation as something that happened, because in the real timeline, probably a few days later, Hendricks ends up going crazy and goes to get Sebastian Kruger, and then John Taylor and Kane push to go stop Hendricks. Yeah, it gets confusing if you try to get too crazy. So if you try to follow the events of just what really happened and you take away the simulation and you take away all the craziness, I think the story is actually pretty simple. So in reality, the first mission and the last mission are the only ones that really take place in the real world. At least that's what I think. That's my interpretation of it. Again, that's just really all I have to say. I wanted to come in here after that, no script, nothing, and just kind of talk a little bit about what I thought and how I think this story played out. I mean, I think overall there's a really good story. It just sadly was executed wrong, like I said before. I actually think that if Black Ops 3 could have been the story of John Taylor and Hendricks chasing down his team of Dylan Stone, and those would have been the actual missions, I think the story would have been much better. I think Christopher Maloney would have given a better performance than the guy who played P, and I think that you could have done like a montage at the beginning of the game explaining everything that happened in the comics. You could have done a montage for about 2, 3, 4 minutes and explained what happened, and then you could have jumped into the story of Black Ops 3. And after you ended it, there could have been something that awoke and this AI went rogue and crazy, and now you have to chase that and find that AI in the next Black Ops game. That could have been a sequel. I think we didn't need the simulation. I just don't think we needed it. I think it was way more interesting when you were following the real life events, not the simulation. But that's just my 2 cents. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to cover something super easy after this.